pressure off the edge, and it's intercepted. D'Angelo Pons roll out the big red carpet. Touchdown, Indiana.
It's time for the big red carpet. Here's your host, Rhett Lewis.
Guys, we are rolling that big red carpet out from Eugene, Oregon, all the way back to Bloomington, Indiana, after one of the biggest wins in program history. First time beating a top 5 ranked opponent on the road. An absolutely glorious day to be a Hoosier. Welcome, everybody. So great to be back here with you for another episode of the big red carpet, perhaps the biggest ever. Actually, let's just call it what it is. This is the biggest episode ever of the big red carpet in our short history, but excited to be back here with you to run through this Oregon game. We will do that offensively. We will do that defensively. But we have the distinct pleasure to welcome in the architect of this success through the football program that we have seen over the course of the last 2 years, Vice President and Director of Intercollegiate Athletics at Indiana, the one and only Scott Dolson. I would stand up and give you a standing ovation if I could here in my seat. I will hat tip you. You know how much I appreciate what you've done. We've talked about it, but I feel like I speak for all Hoosiers just to say again, thank you for making the best decision in college football history. You and Pam Whitten deciding that Curt Cignetti was the man to lead this program has just been met with unequivocal success, and the dividends keep rolling in, Scott. So thanks again. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Rhett. I was really looking forward to being on with you today. Yeah,
no doubt. And man, you were there in 2004 when one of the teams I was on went to Autzen Stadium and beat Oregon, and an upset, maybe not quite like this one, but still was incredible. We now have a winning streak at Autzen Stadium in Eugene. Let that sink in for a second. Take me inside your head in that moment. We saw you jumping up and down, celebrating. President Whitten was loving it as well. Like, what was going through your mind as those final seconds ticked off the clock at Autzen Stadium?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad you mentioned President Whitten, because she has been probably an unsung hero in a lot of ways behind the scenes, because her support for the time she arrived here. I mean, my first meeting with her, she said, we need to win in football here. And it's super important for the entire university and for so many reasons, for the state. And so obviously without her support, you hear that buzzword alignment a lot. Without that alignment, there would be no SIG here. And so, that's super important. But, definitely when we got the win on Saturday, I mean, I was just very emotional and was just so fun. one of the things that when we made the change in football, I remember saying to the team at the time when I let them know that we were making a change, that I just killed me to see them in the locker room. They poured their hearts into the program and just not to have success. And I want our student athletes to, in all our sports, but obviously with football, to maximize that opportunity. And so to see that on the field on Saturday and just see the players' faces and the amount of work and time that they put in, and just to have that, and then to see our fans, to see our coaches, that adrenaline just by seeing the joy in everybody's faces, having been through a lot, and I guess having been through all the challenges we've been through, just meant so much. It was awesome.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the alignment from president to athletic director to head coach. And then when you think about it, from head coach to coordinators, from coordinators to assistant coaches, and from coaches to players 1 through 120, there is just a cohesiveness about this program that is palpable and that is tangible with results on the field. And speaking of those results, I won't rehash, the whole process with SIG. We've gone through that before, but I would love your reflection now on maybe some piece of that, because to me, I've been asked this about 100 times since the game on Saturday night with all the radio shows that I've done since, but what is it? What is the biggest reason for the success? And I kept coming back to, Scott, the blueprint that SIG has had through 3 very successful head coaching stints before Indiana. Sure, at different levels, but when you have the blueprint that works, I feel like you then know how to scale it, which he had to do here in the Big Ten and with Indiana. How much was that blueprint and that prior success a guiding light for you as Sig moved up through the ranks in his coaching career, knowing that he could kind of continue that here?
Yeah, it's massive. And honestly, just as you know, been here a long time, as I've watched our really successful coaches who have ran very successful programs, and you know the names, as I've been able to watch a Jerry Yeagley or obviously work for Coach Knight, but looked at those historic blueprints where they really had not just a great season, but just had year in and year out nationally competitive programs. That blueprint is so important. And I know I've said this to you before, but I'll never forget interviewing Coach Sig. It was like he had my questions before I answered or asked them in terms of, what I was looking for, what we were looking for in terms of someone with a blueprint. And we had our blueprint made up of what we were looking for and qualities of a coach. And literally he checked every box. And so there's no question that his blueprint is applicable regardless of what level, where you are, and everything that he said he would do in his interview, every single thing he has done. And I think the results speak for themselves.
And then the next piece of it that maybe you didn't have as much experience with, and really no one did, once the changes in college football came about, but was the talent evaluation part, right? And I know, from an athletic department standpoint, that's a big increased investment, not just in the NIL money it takes to bring the best players, into Indiana, but in the staffing, right? And beefing up that staff and allowing Coach Sig and the staff to kind of make those decisions to bring the bodies in that are necessary to evaluate all of these players. How was that part of the equation put together between, you and Coach Sig?
Again, back to the interview process, one of the things that was on our checklist, which was several things, we really wanted someone who had potentially been a recruiting coordinator, who had directed a recruiting department at their previous stops. And Coach Sig certainly had done that. And one of the things we talked about in the interview a lot was his evaluation of talent and how he's developed talent in his career. And then certainly to the modern aspect of college athletics and specifically college football in terms of NIL and that perspective and managing that. We talked about that at a great length. And so he checked every box. And then again, such a cliche, but I love how he evaluates talent. I love how he dives into film. I love his philosophies on that. And certainly to be able then to bring in character into the mix and make certain that the locker room and all those things that, again, it all sounds like cliches, but, he means it. And just to watch that come to fruition has been fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, and I just think about, the unsung heroes, in that equation, Matt Wilson and Mike Ferreira and John and Kendall and and all these guys, all these, these staff members that pour into bringing the best players to Indiana. And we're seeing that. Kellen Wyatt makes a huge sack in the fourth quarter. Stephen Daly is comes through and gets his hand on that ball that Lou Moore intercepts for the first of those two back-to-back interceptions. Like all that stuff matters and can't be done without the support of the entire athletic department and obviously the university as well, as we talked about. So I think that part of it has been so big for the success of this team. Now the next question I have for you is, from your point of view, how do you build on all this success that we're seeing right now?
Well, it's so funny you say that because I was a little worried coming on here today because if I look tired or kind of one of the things that, it's the end of the day on Monday when we're talking.
Right.
And literally all day yesterday and literally all day today, we've been meeting just from an athletic department staff, just talking about and on the phone and talking to people about making certain that we are not complacent. And so, you enjoy a victory like we had on Saturday, which was awesome. But it, again, sounds so cliche-ish to say it, but I know from talking to Coach Sig on the plane on the way back, it was time for him to turn the page and focus on Michigan State. And from a department standpoint, we just can't think we've got it all figured out or sit around and just get fat and happy and read the press clippings. Basically we know we've got a ton of work to do. We're halfway through the season. We want to keep investing, be very proactive, make certain that we double down and take advantage of this opportunity that we have that's been presented in front of us. And so, it honestly feels like the Oregon game was a month ago. It feels like it happened so long ago because there's so much stuff that's been going on. And I just think that we have to be paranoid about not getting past or getting complacent. We're just sort of in a zone with that. And so we'll enjoy this someday. I know we will, but it's time to get to work and really double down, work harder than ever.
Scott, I feel like Coach Sig's rubbing off on you here. I mean, that complacency is the enemy. It is the enemy. And we hear that from him every week. I heard it from him this morning. You want to talk about being aligned? You guys are like this right now.
We are. I mean, and it's just kind of how I grew up. I mean, being around it did, and I hate that I'm not comparing Coach Knight to Sig.
No, I get it.
I'm not, but having grown up and watching firsthand a really successful program, those things rub off on you, and you see how successful people work. And so, there's no silver bullet here. We just have to really, really work. And again, never think that we just have this thing all figured out. We're the smartest people in the room. We just got to really, really be proactive and work hard.
Yeah. And by the way, you don't have to make the comparisons. We can all see some of the congruencies that are there, with people who have, made unprecedented success with their programs here at Indiana. It's impossible not to overlook. Let me ask you this, though. Have you ever spearheaded a Heisman campaign?
No, not personally, but certainly I was a student when AT was here, and Anthony Thompson was, arguably, unfortunately, should have won the Heisman that year. It was a close vote. When Antoine Randall, I was on staff here when he was here. Right. Certainly, again, was phenomenal. So, we've had success in the past, but certainly right now with where we are with the program and certainly where Fernando is, I just love that aspect of the accolades that whenever you have success as a program, everybody wins. And that's kind of when you really think team first, and you think, and I know that's how Fernando thinks. Obviously, that's how Coach Sig thinks. But if you really do the things as a program that we want to do, then good things will happen for everybody. And that's certainly where we are with this situation as well.
Yeah, and by the way, I feel like Coach Cignetti just walked into my room right here and stared up, holes through my face by mentioning Heisman campaign. So I get it. Right. But by the way, I don't know if you're a big ABBA fan, but the song Fernando from ABBA needs to be just all through the stadium over the course of the next couple of weeks as we get some big home games coming up at the Rock and keep defending such a great home field advantage that you guys have helped turn this thing into. How gratifying is it for you? And I got one last one for you, but how gratifying is it for you to see the fanship of this program come alive? I couldn't believe it being there at the Illinois game, being there last year at the Washington game.
It's been beyond my wildest dreams, honestly. Yeah. And I just am so proud of our marketing department and everything everybody's done to make certain that we captured this moment and tried to build on it. Everything from Hoosier The Bison, which when Hoosier The Bison was at the game at Oregon was such a cool thing, and our cheerleaders, our band. Yeah. But again, from a fan perspective, I cannot adequately express how appreciative I am to our fans in terms of their support. And from the day that we introduced Coach Cignetti at the basketball game, I remember we walked out, and Heidi, my wife, and I were just talking about this on yesterday, that when we walked out with Coach Sig, we were back in a room. He had the press conference and everything earlier today. And from the time he walked out, the place just blew up. And I didn't even know if people knew who Coach Sig was. He kind of came from James Madison.
Right.
But the way that our fans have embraced him, embraced our program, people stepped up when we needed it from an NIL perspective, buying season tickets. It takes everybody. And you talk about that in alignment. I don't want to ramble on this, Rhett. Yeah. But the alignment is just not President Witten, myself, and Coach Sig. It's an alignment of our fans. It's donors that are at the highest level, the donors who give us absolutely as much as they can. It doesn't matter the level. It's they're buying tickets. It's they're showing up. It's they're waving the towels. Everybody, our brand is so powerful when everybody comes together. Anything is possible. And again, I don't want to repeat everything Coach Sig says, but there are no limitations whatsoever. And I hope everybody feels that. And we get together and we rally together, which we're doing. I think we can just, shock the world. And that's so it's a rambling answer.
No, it's not.
Tell you that it's just been phenomenal. And our fans have been off the charts. And I just can't thank them enough, and just tell them to keep coming, keep stepping up. And this is not a one-hit wonder situation. We want to change history the way we're building this program.
Yeah, I mean, no question. And, I think we keep rallying together, keep supporting this place. And that Wisconsin game won't be the last home game at the Rock. I know you keep stepping up for IU and for IU football. And we thank you for it, Scott. And we thank you for being here on Big Red Carpet. It's been a blast. And I know there's more great moments to come. So thank you for being with us today.
Well, can't thank you enough for having me, Rhett. And thanks so much for your support, too, as a former player. I mean, it just means a lot to have you in the job that you're in and doing the great things you're out there representing the IU brand and on the big stage. So we appreciate you as well.
No question. It's been a blast, and I know there's a lot more of these types of conversations for us to have here in the future.
Absolutely,
and looking forward to it. Thanks, Scott.
Hey, thanks again. Appreciate it. Go IU. Thank you.
Sir. So that man is determined to make Indiana football a championship level program, and if you didn't see Saturday, they are. So let's show you how they got there as best we can here. And let's start this thing. A couple of things up front, right? Like, you knew the narratives coming in to this game. Indiana's little defensive line. Were they going to be able to deal with these massive, physical, strong, 5-star transfer portal #1 offensive linemen? Yes, they were. And now, look, I've had some fun, probably a little too much fun, being on X and in the social media world over the course of the last 48 hours or so. Apologies if that was a little bit aggressive to some out there, but I feel like the narratives have been overly negative. They've been overly doubting of what Indiana can do, and this was the preeminent moment for silencing that doubt. This was the capstone. Like this, and look, that's not to say the season ends today, right? I think we're all very aware of that, and nobody more so than the guys in that locker room and the guys in that staff room inside Memorial Stadium. So keep that in mind. But for us here on the external side is, we look at this. That game was as big as any to say Indiana is here to stay, not a one-hit wonder, and not a team that folds on the road, not a team that hasn't beaten a top 5 team. All that stuff is gone now. So let's talk a little bit about how they did it. And one thing was conquering the road environment. One thing was conquering the noise. And they did that in such a big way. Sure, there were some false start penalties, but I do not believe that most of those were because of the noise. If you go back and watch that tape, Oregon is stemming pretty suddenly, like right up against the letter of the law in terms of, being a penalty, which there's a penalty for now the phrase is escaping me, but when you intentionally move defensive linemen in unison to draw the offense off sides, that has been a point of emphasis with officials this year that is not allowed. And I thought it got really close, and I was surprised it didn't get called at some point, because there was a number of those false start penalties that really, were a result of that movement from the Oregon defensive line. It actually even happened on the field, one of the field goals for IU, but didn't end up being a negative. So the defensive line conquering the environment, I thought was huge. I actually talked to Rick Neuheisel, who was there in Autzen Stadium as part of the CBS pregame crew, and one of those who picked Oregon to win that game, like that entire set did, and they were entirely wrong. But he was like, I don't think they believed Indiana could win. Talking, one, about the people inside that stadium, right? And then two, talking about the players wearing green and black on that day. And I'd have to agree, because when they got hit in the face a couple of times and over again, and all of a sudden, Indiana hits a 58-yard field goal at the end of the first half, and Oregon goes down, and Indiana's getting the ball to start the second half. I guarantee you there's a couple of guys looking around in that locker room going, what just happened? We're Oregon. That's Indiana. But that is the switch that is happening right now in college football. Okay. So they conquered all that, right? But then the X's and O's part of it, was big, right? Let's start with on the offensive side of the ball. one of the things that this offensive line had to answer, could they deal with big pressure, right? Could they deal with, house blitz pressure? Could they deal with, and I didn't think there was a ton of zero pressure in this game from Oregon, but there was plenty of stunts and games and movement inside. And I talked to you guys last week about the edge rushers, Tuioti and Uiagalelei, and how they might be the two best in the country, or in the conference, certainly. Indiana handled it for the most part. I would say Amari Washington is the guy that probably caused the most trouble, and that is a legit NFL dude right there, and a bunch of those guys are. Bear Alexander had his moments. Washington had his moments, but on the whole, Indiana won that matchup, especially at the end with those runs from Roman Hemby and Kalon Black when they had to have them on the drive that Elijah Sarratt scored the touchdown, when they needed to salt away some clock. They were getting 5, 6, 7, 8-yard chunks at a time. That was huge. But go back to play one. Play one in this game, they bring delayed pressure more than Indiana can block. They run some games up, some stunts up front with the defensive line, and it is blocked to perfection. From Khalil Benson on the right side to the absolute eraser in this game, Carter Smith on the left side. This was the game that NFL scouts are going to watch with Carter Smith. Against high-level talent, he absolutely stood up and handled his business. That was fantastic. Coogan, I thought, was great in this game. Bray Lynch and Drew Evans did their part in this game. Sure, there were some plays they didn't win. Nobody won every rep, but they won the majority of their reps, and that cumulative effect was huge. I thought Fernando Mendoza's mobility in this game was a game changer. He kept it on a couple of read options. The QB draw that gets Indiana down inside the 5. It was almost a 20-yard run, I think, on the first touchdown drive. Massive, just to kind of settling everything down, getting into a short yardage goal line situation. How about that for improvement, right? How many questions did we get in the comments on YouTube? Like, how come Indiana can't get a yard? How come Indiana can't score at the goal line? When it showed up against ODU, and it showed up a couple other times against Iowa in this game. They were perfect in that category in this game against the best defensive front that they have faced all year. That's improvement. That's what, self-scout in a bye week. That's what all that stuff comes together to provide that kind of success. That was incredible. Back shoulder throws. I mean, it was like a symphony watching Fernando Mendoza and Elijah Sarratt. Unbelievable, right? First one was just huge. I mean, guys, Fernando's throwing these balls from the opposite hash to the sideline. Those are beyond NFL throws because the hashes are smaller in the league, right? They're more narrow. They're closer together. So when you take a throw from the college right hash all the way to the opposite sideline on a frozen rope, Rick Neuheisel, I mentioned, I did an appearance on Full Ride on SiriusXM this morning, and he couldn't believe the throws Fernando was making. He's like, that is, I don't know that there is a quarterback in college football right now that an NFL team would rather have. He's got another year of eligibility. But Fernando, come on back. We're good. We can put it on hold for a minute, but I don't know if you can with how well he has been playing. He was absolutely outstanding. Elijah Sarratt, the route technique, the release, the setup that he uses on those back shoulders, and on that go-ahead touchdown that made it 27-20. I mean, piece de resistance was as good a route, and the usage of proper technique and quickness and craftiness. Man, if I'm Mike Shanahan up in that booth, I was smiling, if not shouting when that route went through, and when that play was made, when that throw was made, that touchdown goes up on the scoreboard. That was incredible. Track back here momentarily. Go back to the Roman Hemby touchdown in close from the on that first possession, on that first touchdown drive. Dylan Thieneman, we talked about him pregame, right? He's played Indiana before. Had a bad taste in his mouth from when he last played Indiana. Former Purdue Boilermaker, goes to Oregon and has a one-on-one with Roman Hemby in the hole. I'm gonna post a bunch of these clips here, so stay tuned for all that. Get some of the film. It's the best way for me to do that for you. Roman Hemby one-on-one runs right through the face of Dylan Thieneman and over top of him for that touchdown. It was a thing of absolute beauty. Okay, so we've covered that. Sarratt was incredible. Senior Bowl Offensive Player of the Week this week. Elijah Sarratt, East-West Shrine Game, also honored him as they do throughout the week and throughout the year for players that they would love to have in their game, All-Star games, the 2 preeminent All-Star games in the draft process. So thought that was phenomenal. Offense was just the pick six. It's tough, right? You know, that's the one area where Fernando has got to keep improving. But as Coach Sig said today, it's not all on him. He was getting pressure right in his face. He's in the air as he releases that ball, which is why it didn't have as much on it to get out there for EJ Williams. As Sig said, could have flattened that route down a little bit. But I think every Indiana team that I was ever on, every Indiana team that came before my time, and probably every single one, even last year, probably folds after that pick six. That's probably the turning point, that pick six for Morgan, that just says, dang, we got close, but it's not it. It's not our day. Instead, Coach Sig goes up to Fernando after that pick six and says, hey, you having fun? Fernando says, absolutely, and goes down and leads that touchdown drive that culminates with the throw to Elijah Sarratt. That is, you know what? That is poise, moxie, that is leadership, that is talent, that is processing, that is an understanding of situations and understanding of the offense. I can't say enough about their reactions in the face of adversity in that environment. That right there, that response tells you what this team is made of and what this team is capable of. And when anyone asks you what the ceiling for this Indiana football team is, you say there is none, because they can do that. Okay, that's offensively. Defensively, again, first play on defense, Mario Blandino with a tone-setting effort and sack of Dante Moore. He runs a game with Tyreek Tucker. Both those guys, again, they keep showing up. They keep making plays. We'll get to Isaiah Jones here in a minute. But I thought that play, because, again, it was good coverage on the back end because Dante Moore held the ball. But, man, Blandino kept fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. It's why they told me his name was Crash. They called him Crash, a crash test, because he doesn't care about sticking his face in the fan. Like, that dude is a ball player, and he is going to be an absolute stud as time goes on here at Indiana. Blandino was excellent. Pressured the quarterback in this game like he hadn't seen all year. Hadn't been hit like that all year. He started getting up slower and slower and slower towards the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, and it was wearing on him. So much so in that last throw, we'll get to the interception, but it was almost like, I just got to get it out of my hand. And it ended the game. Listening to Dan Lanning's post-game press conference, just and by the way, if I'm in media training and I'm talking to coaches about how, what their post-game news conferences should look like, win or lose, and in a losing scenario, I'm showing them Dan Lanning's post-game news conference. It was textbook. It was that he gave credit where credit was due. He answered the questions. He gave insightful answers. And more than anything, he talked about what gave them problems. And listening to him talk about his staff getting out coach, who I, again, still think is probably the second best coach of the country at this point, based off what Coach Cignetti has done. And then his staff is really, really good, but they didn't have answers for what Indiana was doing. And when I listened to that news conference, it absolutely solidified in my mind that Mike Shanahan is the best offensive coordinator in this country, and Bryant Haines is unequivocally the best defensive coordinator in this country. And they both call plays for Indiana. Let that sink in for a second. They showed they used the 2 weeks to their absolute best, to the best of their capabilities, getting this team ready, understanding what they had done well in the past, fine-tuning it to get past Oregon in this game. Just on the defensive side, listening to Coach Lanning is like, we couldn't stop the pressure. We didn't have answers for what they were doing. They showed us stuff that we hadn't seen before. And I'm glad they did, because now we can go back and try to work on it. But they had more hats at the point of attack consistently than we could deal with. Think about that for a second. Like, Shanahan and Haines were like the pitchers that in the 7th inning and the 8th inning were throwing no hitters, and they're sitting by themselves on the other end of the dugout. Nobody wants to bother them. They were that in the zone in this game. It was so much fun to watch. And then to hear an opposing coach, like, just talk about the problems that it caused. Man, that was incredible. Aiden Fisher was on fire in this game. Like, this was an Aiden Fisher game. Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, 13 tackles, 1.5 sacks in this game. The 3 linebacker grouping for Indiana continues to be one of the best personnel groupings in all of college football. Elijah Hardy and then Isaiah Jones joining Fisher in there on the second level is just, it's so difficult for teams to deal with. And they started it out. That was the first play, was just like that. They have been playing more 3 linebacker groupings than we have seen in probably a decade at Indiana. So I thought that was awesome. Bones Jones, man. Quick story. One of the first conversations I had with Bryant Haines when he came to Indiana, it was just like, all right, let's talk about the talent. Like, let's talk about the personnel. Like, what are we going to get from Fish? At this point, he hadn't seen Jalen Walker because he didn't practice during the spring. And he's like, I'll tell you what, man, this Isaiah Jones, like, he's going to be a player now. And this is before, anybody really knew, who Isaiah Jones was. He barely played at all. I don't know that he had played at all. Going into that first spring with Coach Cignetti's staff. And this dude just keeps getting better and better and better. And he is a ball hawk. He is a baller. He is just a ball player. Just countless plays. The 4th down stop was huge. That first one that led to the first Indiana points of the game and the field goal. He's a great blitzer. He finds seams. He can turn his body, get through gaps. Like, man, that group is so much fun. It's just, I can't give them enough credit. They've been phenomenal in this game. And he comes up with the interception at the end, but let's talk about those 2 interceptions here for a second. And just kind of detail those. The first interception was incredible effort from Stephen Daly. As we were talking about with Scott Dolson, one of the transfer portal additions here, he absolutely shocks the right guard, lifts him off his feet as he's kind of pulling an inside kind of stunt move. He then gets a free path to the quarterback because of the way he just absolutely forearm shivered the right guard out of the way, gets his hands up. He's the one who tips the ball, and then Lou Moore comes up and gets it. 4 Hoosiers had a chance to intercept that ball, but Lou Moore comes down with it. Incredible play in that game. Hosea Wheeler on the second interception with Daly. They're running a game up front. Center gets pushed all the way back into Dante's lap. He doesn't even bother stepping into the throw, and it just flutters out of his hand and right into the waiting arms of Isaiah Jones, which was the moment. That was it. It was over at that point. I thought Kellen Wyatt continues to show up. His toughness went out in the first half with an injury, comes back in the second half. He got an important sack of the quarterback in the 4th quarter. That was great. And then, man, has Lou Moore been through it or what? Humble beginnings early on in junior college, finding his way to Indiana, barely playing. He burst onto the scene in Lincoln, Nebraska, and sacked, I think it was Casey Thompson at that point for a safety. I remember I was up in the booth at that point, still doing the games, for IU radio with Don Fisher. I'm like, who was that? I don't even have this number on my board. Like, who? It's like, oh, it's Lou Moore. Who? And Lou has just continued to make plays ever since. Goes away in the coaching transition to Ole Miss, and then wants to come back almost immediately. The eligibility issue comes up, fights through that, gets the ruling he needed. He's going to play, and he has gotten better and better and better. His open field tackling and his tackling in general has been a major point of success for Indiana from the safety position. Now, look, they've got to figure out how they deal with not allowing those explosive plays at the end again, or not at the end, but in the back end. That first touchdown from Oregon, that kind of stuff is the stuff that can beat you. But I think they'll figure that out. And if Lou Moore's improvement week over week is any indication, they'll get it fixed really quickly. Been really impressed with how Lou Moore has just been, kind of the safety valve and a guy that comes up and just makes a bunch of plays. So that was that was awesome to see. I think that's most of the big notes that I had here. It was a team effort. Special teams, Nico Radicic, Frankie on the field goal on the 58-yarder. Everything was working in this game. Curt Cignetti is a golden god. Like, let's just call it what it is. I mean, the man understands his team and his messaging and everything around it better than we could ever imagine. He has been phenomenal, and he, as Scott Dolson told us, will have everything he needs to stay and to play for championships, multiple, here at Indiana. All right, guys. Peter, Nathan, anything you guys want to jump back on here with as we close down this episode, this jubilant episode of the Big Red Carpet? We're not going to do a whole lot of Michigan State stuff here, guys. I'll get into that. We might come back. We might have a little bonus episode for you this week. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But anything that stuck out to you guys that we want to hit here real quick?
Yeah, I got a question, Rhett. Cookies or brownies?
Great one. Is it a blondie or is it an actual brownie? Because if it's a blondie, it's brownies all day. There's too many variables with cookies, I guess. Like, what can it be? Is it a sugar cookie? Is it a peanut butter cookie? Is it a chocolate chip cookie? I don't know. I'm a detail guy, but it's a great question. What is it for you guys?
For me, it's got to be brownies. I don't know about you, Peter.
Peter?
I'd say probably cookies.
Okay, one and one. It doesn't matter because Indiana is the sweetest dessert of them all. All of it. Like, Indiana is the cheesecake with caviar on top. Like, that's what they are right now. Okay. I know that sounds like a weird combination. Try it, people. It's delicious. Anything else, Peter?
Yeah,
what you got? Yeah. Oh, Nathan, go ahead.
I thought I might move on to some football now.
Yeah, sure.
How about the poise of Indiana? Both the times Fernando Mendoza has thrown an interception twice this year. I don't know if you could come up with two worse times to throw an interception in those games. Big moments, fourth quarter, but both times they come out stronger than ever. So what do you make of the poise of this team, and how far can it take them?
I think that is the biggest thing. I think that is the biggest thing that impresses me about this team because, one, they play as a team. They pick each other up in those moments. They pat each other on the back, pick them up off the mat, and then, all right, let's go out and do it again. Let's figure out a way to get it done. So I think that's a great point. I think that's what will allow them to be in any game against any team this year. And I don't just mean the rest of the regular season. Great question. Nathan, what do you got, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on this after the Iowa game, but it happened again. Under 30 seconds, it looks like Oregon's going to be up 3.5, but instead, this is a chip shot, go 40 yards, hit a 58-yarder. I mean, that's the type of situational football that we haven't seen. We didn't see last year, and it just looks like, not only is the play calling, but the whole performance itself is, I don't know, it just looks like the sky's the limit for us.
I think it's a great point. The end of half time management. I think there's probably some people out there thinking like, oh, wait, why not use the timeouts a little bit sooner, protect the time that you might have left to go make a play at the end, and then they run it first, and then, oh, you know what? Bam, you get the pass interference. Bang, how many times have you guys seen a team have a long field goal kicker that misses every time? Like, he comes on for the 58-yarder or the 62-yarder, and it's a shank, it's a miss, it's short, it's wide right. To actually be that guy like Frankie and then come in and actually do it and put it between the uprights from 58 out on the road in the rain, like, get out of here, man. Like, that's just that's incredible confidence. It's trust, right, all the way through. How about the trust, though, also of Fernando Mendoza? And I meant to mention this, but the trust he has to have to make those back shoulders with Elijah Sarratt, because those could turn into picks, right, pretty easily. And they have before, not necessarily, this year, but they can. And the trust he has that Surratt's going to find a way is huge. The trust he has in Omar. By the way, how difficult is it to bring Omar Cooper down after he makes a catch? Like, that is like the most slippery dude in the country right now. I'm glad you guys brought all this up. It's bringing this back in my head. It wasn't in my notes, but it needed to be. Like, Omar Cooper is an absolute stud yards after the catch. You guys agree?
Of course.
Yeah. I thought it was phenomenal. Well, guys, thank you. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for getting this thing rolling again. Thanks to Galen. Thanks to the Back Home Network. Thanks to everyone. By the way, Lou Moore mentioned it. Lou Moore is going to be my guest on Under the Hood with IU football, which is going to come out a little bit later this week. So we'll get his thoughts on all the behind the scenes machinations regarding his eligibility fight. And one that he has won, which is awesome. And so we'll have all that. That'll all be coming out a little bit later. I know Crimson Cast has a lot of great stuff coming up for you this week. They already had their live episode, which is out for your consumption now. Back Home Network has you covered for Indiana football. And get out there on YouTube, get in those comments. Let us know how much you'd pay Curt Cignetti to stay here at Indiana, because to me, it's infinite. I'll go to freaking Vegas right now, put it all on black, and then just give it all to the athletic department for a chance to keep Curt Cignetti leading this program. But I don't think money is the thing, right? He knows he can win here. And that's the biggest thing. So with that, that'll do it for this episode of Big Red Carpet. I'll have some more thoughts on Michigan State coming up later in the week. And we'll have keep an eye out for the X account at Rhett NFL. We'll have some of the video clips coming out for you this week as well. And again, get in those comments for us on YouTube. We sure do appreciate you guys doing that. Thanks again for being with us here on Big Red Carpet. I am Rhett Lewis, and we will catch you next time.